All right, I know you guys are wondering what I'm reading today. This amazing book by my very special guest today is going to blow your mind, and she's going to blow your mind as well. So welcome to Season 4, Episode number 2 of the Leadership and Television Show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and I am so excited. Today we're getting into publishing and actually the gospel community with an amazing lady who is just, I'm blown away. My friends that are in the gospel industry, her name is like next to God almost in the gospel industry. She's a publishing juggernaut, Dr. Teresa Hairston.
Wow.
How are we doing today, ma'am?
I am wonderful. Good to be with you.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I feel so blessed to have you on my set. And like I said, this book, Unstoppable, y'all know I normally don't start with this, but she gave me this, and it's just amazing. Like I feel like a kid in a candy store. But I'm going to digress. So today is all about you. So we're going to talk about your background, you know, the amazing work you've done and continue to do, all that good stuff. So let's start. I heard a little birdie say that it was $300 that got this whole thing in motion, but I'll let you tell her everything. So tell everybody about where you come from.
Wow, the $300 and a dream.
Literally.
You know, you got to have a dream. And a lot of times, you know, you have a dream, but you don't do anything because you don't think you have the education or the friends or the money or the whatever you have, you know, the hookup. And so I just started, I was working in New York City and working at a record label. And just, you know, nose to the grind, and had 3 kids, divorced, just struggling.
How old were the kids?
The kids were little tiny ones.
And you had 3 of them?
3. I have twin girls and a son.
Oh.
Yes. So at that point, they were under 10 years old.
Oh my God, I raised twins, and I can't even imagine to have an extra one on top of 2 twins. Oh my God.
Yes. So I had this passion for gospel music, and so that was what really propelled me into the gospel music industry. I was working in it, and I started a publication at the company I was working at, and they said, oh, this is great. And it was so great, they took it into another division. I said, oh, okay. Well, now what, you know?
So what were you initially doing for the record label? Were you like A&R?
Marketing and promotions.
But it was a gospel label?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yes.
So who were some of the people you met back then? Like on that? Because I'm sure the list goes, was it like in that James Cleveland time or the John P. Key time?
Yes,
like what kind of time frame
James Cleveland time. I worked with James Cleveland. I worked with Albertina Walker. Bishop Jeff Banks, so many people that, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And, you know, I know John P. Key. So from back then to now, all of the gospel artists have become like, you know, friends and family.
For you.
Yes. And it's a great community. It is a great community, I have to say that. So anyway, I started with this company, and they said, well, okay, you don't have to worry about doing that anymore. And I said, oh. And I kind of liked it, you know, and I said, do you guys mind if I do this on my own, like, you know, something for the general public? And they said, oh, yeah, no problem. You know, it'll be just a little something. And I started with $300, a 4-page newsletter, and it just started mushrooming from 4 to 8 to 16 to 32.
Jeez.
It went from a newsletter to a glossy magazine, from black and white to color, from local to regional to national. And before I knew it, it was the biggest gospel publication. And it really turned into more than gospel music. It evolved into Christian lifestyle. And that was a major shift, because at that time, we really had nothing that talked about Christian lifestyle, especially from the Black perspective. And there are so many things to be, you know, proud about and to really champion. We've overcome a lot.
Absolutely.
And we have a vibrant culture, a rich heritage. So I began to write about it and to interview people, and it's a phenomenal story.
All right, so let's go back to, because let's go back to the call. Like, what were you doing when you felt like, you know what, I should be writing this down or documenting this for future generations to come, or in my space? Yeah,
I was in studios making music. So I was an artist. Well, not an artist. Let me stop.
I'm about to say, you sang or something? Let me find you sing.
No, I wrote songs.
Really?
And yes, and I was, you know, kind of helping with production and stuff like that. So from the creative side, and you know, I was a musician, played in the church and all of that, ministered music for several churches.
Wait. See, I didn't read none of that. I didn't read that anyway. I didn't read none of that. So you just slid that in there. Wait. Play music? Keyboard? Organ?
Yeah.
You still can?
Uh-huh.
Well, you better think I don't have an organ here, because I'd roll that. I'd roll that bad boy out. 'Cause my grandma plays by ear, but she couldn't teach any of us.
Yes.
But she plays for churches and have done that for decades and centuries. Yeah, I didn't read that anyway. Oh, you got away with murder today. Because if I had a keyboard, I would have the interns roll that bad boy in here. Nice.
Right. So I came up. I started playing the piano when I was 4 years old. And so by 7, I was a big time, little pianist at a little church, and
so
making
by
like
ear?
50 cents a week. Oh, I do both. So
and you can read music?
Yes, I actually, made my education in music, so I have degrees and that kind of thing.
See, you skipped over all that. So tell me about the educational background.
Oh,
what you got?
So, I went to school for music and became a music educator. Taught everything from grade school to college, and then went into the music industry. So here I am in this industry that is, pretty much unstructured. Gospel music industry at that point wasn't like reading charts and stuff. Everybody was like singing from their heart.
And in churches on Sunday mornings and praise teams and choirs.
Yes. So.
So wait, because you like to slide over stuff. Wait a minute, you like to slide over stuff. So how do we go from playing keyboard and piano and stuff to working in the industry? Like, you don't just walk in the door and be like, hey, I want to work here. So how did that?
Well, because I was educated, I could write sheet music. Oh. So that was my entree into the industry, because everybody loved sheet music, but they didn't have a lot of people who knew how to.
I don't think you still have a lot of people who know how to do that.
Right.
Honestly, that can.
So I started writing sheet music, and I did songs for James Cleveland and Walter Hawkins and just so many people. So it was just a blessing to be able to do all of that.
You're like one of those unsung people that's in the background. If they go back and look at studio sessions, you back there playing on piano. It's like, oh my God, it's Dr. Hairston back there. That's what I feel like if we did that, that's what would happen, that we would see that kind of stuff. So you were playing for the community, doing all these great things, and then you start working for a company, and then you have the vision to start writing a magazine. Tell me, actually, I'm not going to do this. We're going to go on break, because I'm about to get into something, and it's going to be too long. So we're going to take our first break, and we'll be back with Dr. Hairston on the Leadership in Television show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so we're back on episode 2 of season 4 with my very special guest, Dr. Teresa Hairston, ma'am.
Good to be here.
So we were getting it. Okay, so I'm gonna put a disclaimer. She likes to breeze over stuff because she's so accomplished. So I'm gonna keep bringing her back because we really want to get the whole story today. So when you were talking about transitioning from the working for the company and then going into magazine, there was also some other stuff that you did in that space, because I saw conferences and all that kind of stuff.
Well, actually, I didn't. The conferences came afterward.
Okay.
So I started the magazine first, and I was focused on the magazine. And 5 years into the magazine, then I started the Gospel Heritage Foundation. Yes.
All right. So this magazine started in like 3 phases, because I saw there's a scoreboard.
There's Score. Score was the first iteration, and that was a 4-page newsletter that evolved into a glossy magazine, and for 5 years it was Score. Well, I started, I think, 3 years in with Scoreboard. Scoreboard was for the industry, and so it was more like the Industry Insider magazine. It was the first publication to do a gospel chart based on the radio stations in gospel music.
Wait, so how?
Yes.
I'll tell you, this is amazing. So what did you do? Compile the...
Yes. So back then, all the radio stations across the country were run by people that I knew. And so I would call them and say, listen, send me your chart, what are you playing? And I would compile those. And my staff, we would all get the charts and go through them and figure out what the top 10, 20, 30 records were that were out there that were being played on radio. And we would report that in Scoreboard every month. So That was a major undertaking.
You see the look on my face. I'm like, because I follow Nielsen's and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I'm just like, I know what they go through, so I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Well, it was back in before internet and all of that, so you're talking about fax machines.
That's what I'm saying. That has to be worse. Like, you can't just send an email and say, this is it. It's got to be, no. We got to send paper copies and fax stuff. And oh my gosh.
So it was a lot differently.
Okay, so you use the term Christian lifestyle. Explain that to me. What is Christian lifestyle?
Lifestyle that's based on the Word of God, on living according to the Word of God.
So like preachers and stuff? And
No. Anybody who is a Christian.
Well, that's I guess that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. Was like that could be like, was it for celebrities that you went into and looked at their lifestyles, or just in general? Like,
well, it's in general, because once we evolved into the Christian lifestyle space, what we found that was probably something that at that time was somewhat novel in the psyche was that Christians are in every walk of life. So literally, we talk to people in government and politics, people in retail and radio, and people in clothes, fashion industry. We talk to people who were actors and entertainers, and I got a chance to interview sports legends.
I was say, I've looked
all
at the
kinds
cover.
of folks.
You didn't leave any stone unturned
No,
in those days.
Because the goal was to let the world know that it doesn't matter who you are and what your discipline is or what your talent or skill is. This is a lifestyle that will improve how you live. So embrace the tenets of Christianity, and this will amplify everything that you do.
I like that. All right, so scoreboard. So we're doing the charts. What else was in scoreboard? Was there, because you said industry insight.
We talked about different moves in the industry. I remember one of the big issues was when the gospel music started being on film and in TV shows, and we started seeing gospel movies and stuff. So we talked about trends and movement in the industry, and we talked about awards and all kinds of stuff like that.
All right, so after scoreboard, what was next? Was that when we got the Gospel Today, or?
Well, Score was turned into Gospel Today, and Scoreboard turned into Gospel Industry Today. So I had two publications for a long, long, long time. And then I think it was sometime in the early 2000s that we kind of finally said, okay, Gospel Industry Today is no more, and we're just going to do Gospel Today for a while.
What is that? How much staff are we looking at to power? Because I did a magazine and I was like, this is for the birds.
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot.
That's with technology. So I can only imagine without the level of technology we have now, what that looked like. So how much staff are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about 15 or 20 people who were freelancers around the country. We're talking about maybe 15 or 20, 30 people who were in retail. Who would do things like making sure that we had tables at venues, at concerts, that they were talking to retail people in the marketplace for distribution outlets. Because back then, remember, we had a lot of mom and pop stores. And all of them carried Gospel Today. And so we would, make sure that they were, stocking their appropriate amount of magazines. Then, of course, the writing staff, we had people freelancing around the country. Then I had people in the office. So, then administratively. So, yeah, it was a lot to manage.
And you had two of them.
Yes.
So I can only imagine the level.
And then at a point, for several years, we had Gospel Today, Gospel Industry Today, and Gospel Heritage, where we did the annual conferences. So, yeah, it was nonstop.
I can only imagine. So, all right, so going into this, what was your vision? Like, what did you see as your end game for you?
Yeah, my vision is to inspire, empower, educate, and entertain. So I wanted people to know that, gospel, and all based on the Word of God. Gospel is one expression, but I think that what we kind of do is we limit ourselves. And so I didn't want to limit us to, well, we can just do music. No, let's do everything. So we did fashion. I actually owned a boutique for years.
I didn't read that either.
Yes. So all kinds of stuff. And so, I did a TV show for 10 years. So a lot of, we just
Just
Yeah.
hold that thought, because I get all that. So we're going to take our second break, and when we come back, we're going to have more words with the phenomenal Publishing Juggernaut. That's my new title
Oh,
for you.
okay,
Publishing
thank you.
Juggernaut.
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 Okay.
Dr. Teresa Hairston. So we will see you when we get back from break. All right, so we are back. I'm going to use this for the next two segments with Publishing Juggernaut, Dr. Teresa Hairston. All right, so you threw in boutiques and all kinds of other
Yes,
stuff.
all kinds of stuff.
Okay, so I guess my question for those out there, particularly African American women,
Yes.
how did you know when it was time to branch into something new? Like, did it just kind of show up, or
You
did
know,
you like?
I think we have all these things inside of us that we want to do, and something happens when the time is right. Doors open, and doors open usually in your spirit first. You know, something in you begins to think. Oh, you begin to wake up. You dream about it. You're like, oh, I got it, and everything you see kind of reminds you of that vision. And that's when it's time to do it. And notice I didn't say when you have the money, because
Facts.
sometimes you are supposed to step out and allow God to honor your faith by meeting your need.
Ron's words have never been spoken.
Thank you.
All right, so because I'm very interested about the conferences and things of that magnitude. How did you get in that space? Like, when did that happen? Because you keep throwing stuff in here. So we got 2 magazines going. So how did we get into that space?
So one night I was living in Nashville and working in Nashville, and I decided for Gospel Today, turning 5. It was actually SCORE at that point and just had turned into Gospel Today. So I was like, oh, I've got to do something to celebrate and to let people know, you know, 5 years was a major milestone.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, let's do a big concert. And instead of just doing a concert just to honor Gospel Today, I said, well, let's honor one of the pioneering people in this industry, which was Albertina Walker. She was a phenomenon, and she had done so many things that people had not honored her for, even though, you know, she was a major figure. So I honored her that night, gave her a big plaque, and had a bunch of the labels in gospel music come together and give her the plaque with me. And so when she got the plaque, she was so overwhelmed. I mean, literally just blown away. And she just thanked me so profusely. And I thought, well, you know, isn't this commonplace? I mean, you know, we got Grammys and all these other things. Why is this such a big thing? And I think the thing was to honor people from their own community. And so I began to think about, well, how do we honor people? And I thought the name heritage. We have to celebrate our heritage. And those people are the fabric of our heritage. And so I started the Gospel Heritage Foundation, and it went from celebration to celebration and education. Because what I found was that even though we celebrate our pioneers, a lot of the young people coming up didn't know their stories or their struggles. And when we talk about all that they came through, and a woman like Albertina who, you know, they had to literally drive all over the country to,
Snacks
and
in the back
they had to
seat,
literally,
kids.
this movie, I think people probably saw this movie, The Green Book, and this list of hotels, that was true. They couldn't just go and check into a Marriott, you know, and to hear those stories and to understand that this was real, this is the reality, but they loved what they did. They loved God so much that they would do it even under those circumstances. And so I wanted to honor our pioneers and our legacy bearers, and so I did that.
I think the amazing part for me with you is the way God orchestrates stuff.
Yes.
So the fact that you already had all these connections and was doing all these works to strengthen those connections, when you pick up the phone, it's probably like, Dr. Harris, okay, what do you need? What do you need and what are we doing? Like, I think that's the amazing part for me.
It was a blessing to know those people. But, you know, sometimes we think it's that easy, but actually what it is that when you sow, you'll reap. And when you know, so many people that, you know, when you made a new record or when you had a new whatever it was, and Gospel Today picked you up and talked about you and put you on a cover or put you in a feature article, then, when it's time to give back, people weren't slow to do it. So I was grateful that we could, partner and teach the young people.
I'm gonna ask you this. I didn't get to ask you this in the green room, but I'm gonna ask you now because I'm very curious on your opinion. So last year or the year before last, Kirk Franklin was talking about the Dove Awards.
Yes.
And how they're in a space and we're in a separate space. Has it always been like that? Because you've been in gospel music for a hot minute. Like
yes,
Christian music versus gospel music?
Yeah, Christian music and gospel music are in two, and the industry of Christian music basically decided that gospel would be black and Christian would be white. So now I know that there are, those crossover opportunities. There are certain artists who are embraced in both arenas, but for the most part, you still have a great separation.
Yeah, when he brought that up, I was like, that's actually something people don't talk about, but it is kind of obvious, even in the charts. You tell the difference in the charts.
Yeah.
So that's I thought I'd throw that out.
Well, it's unfortunate, and I think we've got to lean into a season where now we're figuring out, well, how do we honor gospel? And it's like we're not ashamed of our heritage, and there's nothing that is in our heritage that we should be, well, this is like not as good. No. Gospel rocks it.
We throw off shoes and sing a house down in a heartbeat. But absolutely, like I said, when he brought that up, I was like, that is very interesting. That is very true because there's a different set of resources for each one too. So
and
that makes a big difference.
That's a big part of why gospel has never been on the platforms that it needed to be on.
This is very, very true. Very, very true. I want to get into some of this, but I feel like we're going to run out of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break, our last break, and when I come back, we got to get into some of the bad stuff too, some of the roadblocks you encountered getting this done. So we're going to talk about that on the Leadership and Television Show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so we are back with the publishing juggernaut. Yes, I said I was using every segment. Dr. Teresa Hairston. All right, so it would be remiss if we didn't really get into some things, some roadblocks that you encountered. So what were some of the roadblocks that you encountered?
Well, it's this story of the black woman who steps into an arena. And, with gospel music, that's one thing, but publishing is really a different thing.
I can only imagine.
Media is a different thing. So the money that it takes and the backing that you really need when people don't understand what you're doing and, they're not really seeing their part in it. So, investors, none, never.
Ever?
Ever. Mm-mm. So this was a matter of just, kind of like doing the snowball thing and trying to pick up momentum. But God was so faithful in that. And so it has been just a journey, getting the magazine distributed, getting it printed, just, all of the kinds of things that you need money and backing to do. But again, you just start where you can and you grow as you can and trust God. And so the obstacles, being in Nashville, and as you said, the black-white divide in the gospel music and the Christian industry, and daring to be a woman who owns a company and is, talking to them about advertising and all kinds of other things. And so as we began to expand and to do more, it was just amazing how we were blessed. So again, the challenges have been many, but the blessings have been monumental.
Yeah, because your name is like a force to be reckoned with in the gospel community.
Thank you.
So, because I'm very curious about this, because we see virtual magazines, which it does not take a lot to do a virtual magazine. It took a lot to do a magazine. And with this magazine, we're talking about on shelves, like the magazines, like when you're in line at the grocery store and the whole thing with all the old magazine. This is what we're talking about. So I want to make that very clear. That's what we're talking about. So how did you get around distribution? Like the money it takes to put together the magazine, and how did you even pull that off?
Well, you negotiate deals and you go in and you do what you can, and then eventually it began to be a thing where people were looking for the magazine. And you know, I have to say that I sit here on the shoulders, I stand on the shoulders of so many people. I mean, there were times where radio announcers would say, hey, have you picked up your new copy of Gospel Today? It's got so-and-so. And people would invite me on television shows like this one and talk about what I'm doing. That's what it takes. We are a great community. We have great resources, but sometimes we think that the resources have to be financial. But we have many more resources than just the money. We have people, you know, we have churches. I have done so many church subscription drives, and I have to say that, you know, there are great pastors who supported Gospel Today. People like T.D. Jakes.
How about that? Because he was on the cover.
Oh, many times. But, you know, when he was doing MegaFest here, he called me and said, hey, why don't you do something with your magazine for MegaFest? We became the official magazine for MegaFest. And when you sit in a Superdome and you got, you know, tens of thousands of people in there, and he holds up a Gospel Today magazines and said, hey, pass out subscription cards. Everybody in here needs to subscribe. It's an amazing thing. When Paul Morton goes to the Superdome in New Orleans and does the same thing. So, you know, you have those kinds of support systems that you know, that's relationship, and that's a blessing. And, you know, and it's us. It's us, for us, by us, and about us. And so we have resources. So I want people to know that I don't care where you are, and even now, in pandemic, all of that, vision is not lacking, even in the pandemic.
Thanks.
So whatever you woke up thinking, I need to do this, do it. Don't wait. Don't wait for the time to be right. Don't wait for the money to be right. Just do it. Ooh, that's a slow.
I felt the arm on my hair stand up. You said something right there. You was preaching right there. You said something right there. All right, I don't normally do this, but I'm so curious. Memorable moment. What is two of your most memorable moments that you always remember? I know. You've done so much. I'm just so curious. Like, what stands out in your mind?
Well, you know, there was a time I was called to host at the White House, and they were putting together a gospel music celebration, and it was at a time where President Bush was in office, and the guy called me. He says, you know, we'd like for you to host this gospel event. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll attend. And he said, no. I didn't say attend. I said host. I said, you mean talk on the microphone at the White House? I said, oh, really?
Okay.
So that was, and you know, the Secret Service came and picked me up, and they, you know, drove through the, you know, so that whole thing, and you know, all of the clearances and all of the, you know, the backstage stuff that the White House does. So that was just amazing. That was amazing. I think the second experience was probably being in the Holy Land. I was invited to go to the Holy Land, and to be able to pray at the Wailing Wall, and to, you know, it was, you know, the kind of tour where they say you walked where Jesus walked. Well, we ran where Jesus walked. Because, you know, you go through. But I mean, it is just an amazing. And I sat there and I thought about from whence I've come. You know, $300, 3 kids, divorced, single mom, black woman, and all of the stuff. And here you are invited to be in the Holy Land, and it was just amazing. So. I just tell people, you know, you are only limited by what you allow to limit you. So.
Okay, one more question along those lines.
Okay.
This makes me so curious. When was the moment that you felt like I've arrived? What moment was it for you?
Tomorrow. I mean, we never arrive. We are always growing, always expanding, always stretching.
That's true, but it's got to be like a moment where you look around and go, wow, like this is really a thing.
I think I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for the people that I know. I'm grateful for the things that I've experienced, the things that God has allowed me to do. And I think as long as you remain humble, you remain moldable, and you still remain usable.
Okay, fine, I'll take that answer. I can't debate that answer. I'll take that. I'll take that answer. All right, so what are you currently doing now? What are you working on now outside of this amazing book, Unstoppable?
Unstoppable tells my story. It tells the story of Gospel Today and Gospel Heritage, all of the stuff that I went through, because I think we need to know that other people can make it. It's a coffee table book because I want people to share this story. have it in your homes, your churches, that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that is a part of legacy. And our community needs to know that this black woman did something that is a part of the legacy of and a part of our heritage. I'm doing books. I help people do books. I'm a ghostwriter. I do media. I do a TV show on Impact Network, on Impact TV, out of Detroit. Shout out to Impact, Apostle Wayne T. Jackson, who's the owner, the largest Christian black-owned network in the world. So I'm glad to be a part of that, and
where you
just
should be. That's
always evolving. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm a grandma.
Yeah, you got how many grandkids?
Oh.
Since you brought up, how many?
You want to do that?
I was gonna let you off the hook. You brought it up. So how many?
Yeah, a bunch, a tribe.
I just want to say she walked into that one. I didn't do that. You did that one. All right. So how do people get in touch with you?
TeresaHairston.com. TeresaHairston.com is great. Yeah.
I will say she was one of the easiest people to set this up for. I do get some struggles with some people sometimes. Very rarely, but it does happen. And when I ask, it was not a struggle. And I'm so honored again to have you with us
it's my
today.
honor to be here. Thank you.
Any parting thoughts
Yeah.
for an African-American woman who wants to become an entrepreneur, whether it be publishing or whatever?
I just think that we're in a season now that is unprecedented. And, your life matters. And, we got T-shirts and all that to confirm that. But your life matters, your dream, your vision. I don't care who you are, black, white, it doesn't matter, Asian, it really doesn't matter. Wherever you find yourself, just trust that the vision that God put in you is the one He wants to manifest in the earth. You were born on purpose, for purpose. And there's something that everybody has inside of them that will bless somebody else, that will bless the world. And you are unique. And so that's the thing, that when you know that about yourself, then, nothing anybody says or does
Facts.
can, disturb you or discourage you or make you sit there. You are only limited by what you allow to limit you.
That's the second time she didn't try to preach on this stage. That's the second time you didn't try to preach on this stage.
Uh-oh.
But I'm going to let you off the hook because we'll keep going.
Somebody needed to hear that.
Absolutely. I see my intern nodding her head. She'll probably be crying later on this. Probably touched her spirit right there. It's touched her soul. All right, so we are out of time. Thanks again to the publishing juggernaut, Dr. Teresa Hairston. Thank you so much for being here. You are truly a legend. And
Thank you.
You touched me today.
Thank
you done preached
Bless
twice
you.
on my platform, but it's okay. I'm going to let it slide.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going to let it slide a little bit. All right, so we will see you guys same time, same place on the Leadership and Television Show with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.